An industrial lot like this one here is perhaps one of the last places on Earth that you would expect to see a tiny house on wheels. Yet here, amongst the trucks and commercial machinery, is perhaps one of the most spectacular tiny homes that I have ever seen. G'day Matt, how's it going, mate?
Bryce, good to see you, welcome.
It's great to see you, it's wonderful to be here. And your home looks absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much, yeah.
The style of this, it definitely has that West Coast vibe to it, doesn't it?
Definitely, yeah, I wanted to incorporate the local woods of the West Coast, the cedars, the firs, and just make it have the spirit of the coast.
What was it that actually made you want to build a tiny house on wheels?
I'd always wanted to build my own home, and I sort of thought that it's really the most realistic option for me. I thought it'd be a really fun sort of artistic project. Because it's smaller, you can go a bit more grandiose on the inside, and so that excited me. And so yeah, I kind of just jumped in, bought a trailer, and went to town building.
And what was the process of building the home like?
I'd put about 10 months of solid work into it. I did everything myself, every nail and every wire, and for me, the whole process was just learning right from the get-go. And I just asked a lot of questions to different builders, and then did a lot of Googling, did a lot of YouTubing, and then I just sort of let go of my perfect idea of what it should be and just jumped in, and this has evolved as I went. I started finding used materials and they started influencing the design, and the story sort of wrote itself as I began to build. I've learned a lot about perseverance because of a terminal disease that I have. I've got a disease called cystic fibrosis, and there's a lot of pain involved in the journey with that disease. A lot of mental barriers and psychological and spiritual walls that need to be overcome with it. And so I think I've learned a lot about the value of keeping on when things get tough. And I've learned patience through that process with that disease. And so when it came to the house, there's plenty of opportunities to quit because things were getting hard. And because I know the rewards that come from waiting and from pushing through struggle, and the lessons that I've learned about how your emotions can really lie to you, and sticking to your goal, sticking to your vision, how that's more important. I sort of applied those lessons to the build, and I think that's what helped me get through.
And then the parking space. This is really something different, huh?
It is. I've mixed a couple of different worlds here with sort of an industrial zone meets a little bit of a wooded nook. And, it's great. I love the sort of the busyness of people working around me, but also have my own space, so it's kind of nice.
And now, the house. Tell me about the materials that have gone into this.
Yes, some of my most exciting parts of the house, I think, are the used materials. So it's about 35% reused. This old, beautiful red, rusty tin came from an old barge building that was on the harbor in a town called Powell River. And so I went and took a bunch of it off the building because it was being demoed. And I used it on the outside and on the roof, and a little bit on the inside as well. And then we've got Western red cedar for shingles and for trim. And then on the inside, there's quite a bit of fir. So it's sort of cedar on the outside, fir on the inside mostly, so yeah.
And the way that you've combined these materials, it has this wonderful kind of fusion between industrial and whimsical, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Whimsical is a great word for it. I wanted a little bit of that fairy tale kind of feel meets sort of that backwoods, rustic kind of Viking cabin-y kind of feel.
And what size is the tiny house?
It's 30 feet by 8.5 feet wide by 16.5 feet tall.
And while we're on the exterior, I cannot go past this incredible entranceway that you have created for your home. And those doors, oh my goodness.
Thank you. Yeah, the doors were the start of the whole thing, really. I built the doors before I had any part of the house designed, and I just love doors. Doors are the entranceway to your home. They set the mood and the tone for how you feel about your space, and so I really love grandiose, epic feeling things. And so I decided to make this entrance epic, and then it sort of influenced the rest of the feel, sort of the themes and the motifs of the house. So I got a little bit of country boy in me and a little bit of West Coast boy in me, so I tried to kind of incorporate both worlds for that back cabin-y woods feel.
Absolutely. And maybe a little bit of Viking in you as well, because it definitely has that grandiose entranceway feel. It's like walking into a hall of Valhalla or something.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
The Viking beer hall.
The Viking beer hall, right? And especially what you've done with these lights up here as well. That's such a nice touch.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted that, just that ambiance, the flames there.
And then the antler handles. Wow.
I think that's my favorite part of the door. To make it epic, you have to have something like that, So
wow, yeah.
So those are from a Roosevelt elk. Yeah, somebody gifted those to me actually, so it was a privilege to be able to receive them.
Beautiful. Well, the exterior of the home is absolutely enchanting, and I cannot wait to see what you've done inside. Can we check it out?
Oh, absolutely. Let's go in.
All right. This is absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
Walking into this space, it has this incredible sense of openness to it, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I really wanted that sort of vaulted ceiling look, that ancient design that cathedrals use, and just to give that illusion of that psychological space.
Yeah, and the way that you've left the rafters in here exposed as well helps to add to that aesthetic, doesn't it?
Thank you. Yeah, it definitely does, and I think it also sort of adds to that sort of West Coast aesthetic, the exposed beam, raw material, I love that. And so, yeah, kind of cabin-esque.
It certainly is. And this light feature, wow.
Thank you. I think, I had some of the most fun out of everything. I had the most fun making that. That old beam there is from a harbor in Powell River that was being torn up. And so I thought it'd be neat to take a piece of history with me and have it in the home.
And having the heavy knots and the rope in there as well. And I noticed you've actually used rope as a lot of your trim in here as well. It gives the home almost that nautical theme, doesn't it?
Yeah, you hit it on the head there. I work on the water, and I just love our coast's nautical history. And so I thought, why don't I somehow try to incorporate it in the house? And that was my solution. And it's also a really great way to hide your mistakes.
Also very true. Two birds with one stone, right?
Exactly.
So what do you do on the water?
I'm a guide. I run what's called a Zodiac, and we go out and find whales and bears and sea otters and sea lions and all the fun stuff. So
that's so cool, because the wildlife here in Canada is spectacular.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, we're extremely blessed.
You really are so blessed.
Yeah.
And then immediately walking into the house, we're greeted by this incredible fire.
Yeah. This is actually a real special piece in the home for me. This was in the home of two good friends of mine. And we've had a lot of memories playing music in front of the fire, having philosophical chats and laughs and cries. And they moved from that home and decided to give the fire to me. So the hearth sort of has traveled with me and the memories that it holds. So it's a special piece for me. Yeah, probably one of the most important pieces of the home, I think.
How beautiful that you've managed to incorporate that. And the stones that the fire is sitting on are just really lovely.
Thank you. Those are actually from the Rocky Mountains. I was doing a trip over towards Edmonton, and there's a bunch of shale that's on the side of the road there, and I thought that would be really cool for something in the house. And then I didn't have a solution for the hearth, and I thought those would be cool for that, so I decided to use them for that.
And then we have this lounge area here.
Yeah, every home needs that real comfortable spot. Otherwise, it's not home. So I thought it'd be kind of nice to be able to look out both sides of the house. So I've got a window sort of at head height. When you're relaxing at the house, you can look out, and then the French doors here. And yeah, it's just nice to be able to sit at your couch and look out at nature and kind of be in a peaceful space,
Absolutely. And this coffee table here is really neat. Can you tell me about this?
Yeah, so a friend of mine found this old compass in a derelict boat, and he actually gifted that to me. And so the compass is such a metaphor and a symbol for so many things in life. And so I thought it'd be fun to incorporate that in the house, and I wanted it front, right, and center. And so having it in your main living space is kind of like a reminder of to remember what's your true north. And whenever you relax in a space, it's nice to get your bearings. And I feel like the compass kind of just reminds me of that a little bit. And it also holds the memory of that friendship with that fellow as well. So a special thing for me.
What a treasure.
Yeah.
I love that. And you've definitely thought about entertainment in this home as well, because I see you've got a projector screen that pulls down.
Yeah. I'll definitely pull down the screen, and I've got a little projector that hangs from the ceiling. And I love film. Film is an amazing art form, and so I'll have those movie nights for sure. Yeah.
Very cool. And then continuing the kind of nautical theme with the map on the wall.
This is actually of the immediate area, Cleocote Sound, and it's my playground. This is where I work. So I thought, with a compass, you may as well have a chart, and helps you keep orientated.
Absolutely. And what a playground it is, huh?
It is. I'm beyond blessed to be able to call this home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then your kitchen. Look at that countertop.
Thank you. You know, the kitchen is special too for emotional reasons. A lot of the things in here came from my friend's properties. So a friend of mine actually milled this countertop for me. And then another friend donated his old fence. And that's what I made the cabinets out of. Everything in here is pretty much reclaimed. So it's a special feeling to have sort of the emotional component, the history with those friends, and the reused materials come together.
And so what timber is this?
So this is Douglas fir. Yeah, this is grand fir. The panels on the doors are all made of western red cedar, and then the trim around the doors is also fir. Most of the trim around the doors was old baseboards that came out of a demoed house, and they were all painted and kind of gross, and I just threw them through a planer and sanded them down, and the wood has revealed its beauty again.
It certainly has. And it is beautifully paired with this stunning copper sink. Look at that.
Thank you. I think that's one of my favorite parts of the house. It's the splurge of the house for sure. It's big enough you could bathe a small child in there, I think. So
I think you could.
Every house needs a second tub.
Absolutely. I think you'd probably have a hard time getting in there though.
It's true. It's true. I haven't tried yet, but
there's just something about the combination of copper and hard timber that just immediately makes a space feel so warm and welcoming.
It's so true. There's something about the sort of elemental, almost primal nature of the look that seems to appeal to me. And there's that primal process of building your own home, and I wanted that to be reflected in the feel of it. And so those earthy sort of elements, I felt were the best way to do that.
And these light fittings are just stunning. These are actually made from the same tin that you used on the roof, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah. I really wanted to bring the outside of the house inside, just to sort of have that continuity of theme. And again, it kind of plays into that elemental feel, that rusty tin. I feel like it sort of complements the reds in the tin, complement the sort of yellows and the oranges in the wood and the fir. So we've got blue steel and then the tin here, and then western red cedar for the panel. And then the fixture itself is made out of gas pipe.
Yeah, and let's talk about the practicality of this kitchen. Beautifully constructed, but you have a very functional working space as well, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. There were a couple of different components that were really important for me. So one of those components was counter space. I really love to cook, and I hate cooking in a space where you feel like you can't. So yeah, I wanted a main counter that was quite long. And then I thought it'd be nice to separate the stove area. So I just sort of snuck the stove in beside the fridge, and it's kind of a seamless transition.
And it looks like you've built in a dining extension to the countertop as well.
Yeah, so originally what I was gonna do is build that extension out of the same fir that the counter is made. But a friend of mine suggested, well, what if you made it out of steel? Because you got steel light fixtures. And I thought, that's a great idea. So ended up finding an old piece of scrap metal and welded some corners onto it. And it ends up being a nice little nook to eat for a couple of different people.
Brilliant. And then, what do we have through here?
Ah, yes, one of the best rooms in the house, the bathroom. The timber here, the countertop, is maple, and that was milled by a friend and given to me as a gift. And then the cabinetry, again, is trimmed in fir. And then for the panels of the cabinets, I actually decided to incorporate that tin again. Just to bring that into this side of the house.
Very nice. And you've got a flushing toilet in here.
Yeah, I sort of wrestled between composting and flushing, and the deciding sort of factor was that the property had septic. So I thought, well, why don't I just throw a regular toilet in, and then I can always add a composting later if I move the home to a site that needs it.
Really great size shower that you've managed to build in here as well.
Yeah, it was really important for me to have a bigger shower space. I don't like feeling claustrophobic when I'm showering, and I was kind of thinking for the future too, it'd be good to have enough room for two people. And the other sort of dream I've always had with showers is I've always wanted a luxurious rain shower. And so I wanted a space that was big enough to accommodate it. So yeah, that's what I decided to do with this space.
And it is impossible in here not to notice the floor. This is really cool what you've done here.
Yeah, so this is an end grain fir floor. And the inspiration came from a town just south of here called Victoria. There's streets outside that are lined with end grained fir. And they're 150 years old. And I thought, that's so cool. How can I incorporate that look into the house? And so the bathroom was the ideal place because it's a small space and it's quite a bit more work to do that type of floor. So rather than do the whole house, this was the opportunity. So basically I just took a bunch of 2x4s, cut them up into small slices and then glued them to the floor and then took epoxy and slowly spread it around until it looked right.
What a great result.
Thank you.
And then over here we have your stairs, and this is such an interesting design.
Yeah, you know, when I was designing the stairs, I realized that in a tiny home, the stairs are not only a focal point, but they're extremely important for utilitarian, like storage. And so I had seen somebody make stairs similar to this out of concrete. And I thought, well, what if I just took a square post and cut it in half? And so, yeah, that's what I did. I like that sort of minimalist floating stair look, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. All this is old reclaimed cedar it's actually siding from an old house. And then this is just one long post that we cut in half, and it's on a 45-degree angle, so it gives me plenty of storage underneath, yet it's not too steep that it's uncomfortable to climb. You kind of climb up on all fours. You could walk up it, but I find it just works better to go on all fours, and it seems comfortable that way, so.
Very clever design. And should we check out the sleeping loft, see what you've done up there?
Yeah, let's go up there.
All right. It's a very roomy feeling loft, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, it was important to me to not feel too cramped when I was sleeping. So I decided to extend the loft about 4 or 5 feet beyond the bed. And that way I could have a little sitting area if I wanted to read or even just fold clothes and that kind of thing.
I love that you've included the musical notations up here as well.
Yeah, so that's actually music from my childhood. So I'm a musician by trade. I play the violin. And those are all pieces that I learned on. So if you look real close, you can actually see my notes written all over the sheets.
You can too. That's so special that you've been able to incorporate that.
Yeah, you know, it's a bit of a reminder of where I came from, and I think maybe a little bit of a sort of a prophetic declaration of where you're going to. You know, your history is important and informs where you go and reminds you who you are. And so I wanted that to be facing me in the space that I rest in.
I think that's just so pertinent as well, because really what you've done here as well in constructing your own home, this is an opportunity for you to build a space that perfectly reflects you and your character.
Completely. Reflecting about the build after I finished, I realized that the home really is a bit of a manifestation of parts of who I am, because each part of the home contains a piece of my story.
And how long have you been living in the home now?
I'm pretty fresh into it. It's only been about 2.5 months. So I'm finally getting to experience the hard work, and so far I'm pretty excited about it. Things are working well in here.
What does it feel like for you now to be here in this space that you've built?
It's almost surreal. There were points in the build where, you know, you go through the journey of up and downs and what have I done? Should I continue? You know, and after I finished, it was like, now that I'm in here, man, oh man, I'm so grateful that I pushed through and focused on all the little details that I did, and yeah, the result is satisfying for me. In some ways, for me, this home was a rite of passage. Not that I would have never considered myself a man before, but there's something that happened after completing your own shelter, your own space. There's a maturing that happened, an aging of the wine, and I feel more settled within myself after completing the house. And I think a big part of that is because I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know how to do it. And proving to myself that I could, and now living in the fruits of those labors, is an affirmation for me that, again, the impossible is not impossible. And what you set your mind to, more likely or not, you can do it.
And what about the cost in building this home?
Because I did everything myself, my material cost ended up being about $30,000.
No way.
So,
That is almost unbelievable for this home.
It is. I think a big factor was there were people who gifted me some expensive items like my stove, and then the reclaimed materials saved me quite a bit of money.
But you did all of this with no previous building experience.
That's right.
There are so many people out there who would look at a project like this and would just think, it's totally overwhelming, I can't do it. What was it that empowered you to push through and make this happen?
Partly, what made it possible is I didn't understand the gravity of what I was jumping into.
Yeah.
But once you start, you realize that just like everything else in life, all you can do is one step in front of the other, and small bites at a time. And so I think the biggest factor is if you're willing to take a risk. I knew nothing about how to build this house when I started, and now I know a lot. And I'm not a genius or an Einstein. I'm just a regular guy who was willing to try.
Matt, you have constructed such a beautiful home here. And while it might be a tiny house, I think this stands as a tremendous and huge monument to your determination in making this happen. Thank you so much for sharing it with me.
Thank you, Bryce. It's an absolute pleasure to have you.
This really is such a beautiful home. But what's even more special than this home is Matt and his incredible journey. This is a story of courage, of determination, and of a person who realized that they can accomplish anything they set their mind to. And I think all of us sometimes need that reminder.